Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. A'udhu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Gfirli, my Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. Hello, everyone. I wanted to give a lecture, and the title, A Rare Species in a Rarer World, occurred to me. I found that that title had a beauty to it. And I did some research, and I want to read something for you, and then I'm going to dive deeper into it. So it's important to acknowledge certain facts or certain information or perceptions that we as human beings who associate with I guess physical substrate, we I'll say differently, as physical entities, we have perceptions on physical reality, and research has been done. Okay, so I'm going to read some statistics for you, and the whole point of this lecture is for you to wonder about how rare it is to be here and for the world to be here. Let's look into it. So, the age of the universe, approximately 13.8 billion years. And the whole point is we're trying to, again, wonder about the value of where we are. So, the universe's age, approximately 13.8 billion years old. You may ask how they know this. I think it's based on redshift and background radiation. Pretty much they're noticing the temperature in outer space. Observable universe diameter. So the diameter of our whole universe is being considered to be about 93 billion light years. Estimated galaxies, how many galaxies are there in our universe? 2 trillion there's 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. Okay, and this is NASA and Hubble based on 2016, their conclusion. But let's say it's trillions. Okay, so there's 2 trillion in observable 2 trillion galaxies in an observable universe. Just get a sense of the scale of where we are. Earth's age, 4.5 billion years. Life appeared approximately 3.8 billion years ago. Human existence, approximately 300,000 years old. Then in 1961, we had this dude named Frank Drake, 30 years pretty much before I was born. And he came up with the Drake equation. And the Drake equation is designed to estimate intelligent extraterrestrial civilization. So this dude came up with an equation, yo. Now it's explaining, the AI is explaining. So the equation is this. I'm gonna show it there. I gotta bring, I guess, here. Hold on, guys. I'm opening up the notepad. You need to see this part. If you're driving, you don't need to. But if you're if you're not driving, you should probably look at the screen. So, folks, this is it. That there's something being shared. This is the Drake equation. I don't know if I can copy paste this properly. Let's see. Oh my god, it's terrible. Okay, I can't do this. Maybe I can take a screenshot of it. Yeah. There we go. There we go, folks. There we go. So if you look at the screen, you'll see nothing there because I haven't still put it up there, but here, almost there. Okay. There we go. There we go. Bravo. I'm saying that to myself. It's almost there. Hold on. Okay, there we go. This works. So look at the screen, folks. I guess I gotta drag and drop. Guys, meanwhile I do this, imagine I'm just talking. Okay, there you go. I don't know if you see it, but you should. Probably. Okay, there you go. You can still see it, right? Okay, there we go. This should be visible. It is. So, ladies and gentlemen, look at the screen. This is the Drake equation. I'm not sure how to exactly read it, but you can see the terminology. Being rate of star formation per year in Milky Way. So the estimated value is 1.5 to 3 stars per year. And then you have fraction of stars with planetary systems, nearly 100%. NASA, Kepler. Planets suitable for life per planetary system, approximately 0.4 planets per star. Fraction of suitable planets on which life appears, highly uncertain. Estimates vary from 0.01 rare to 0.3 optimistic. Fraction evolving intelligent life, highly uncertain, estimated to be 0.01 to 0.1. Fraction capable of interstellar communication, estimated 0.01 to 0.2. Lifespan of communicating civilization, speculative 100 to millions of years. Dude, this guy was a mathematician, and they're like, yo, man, you can't estimate how many intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations there are. And the dude's like, watch me. And that's how this equation came about. Anyways, the universe has infinite potential, folks. That's what it means. Then we go to the anthropic principle definition. Observations of the universe. This is on mute, is it? Okay. Observations of the universe must be compatible with the conscious life observing it. This is the anthropic principle. Fine-tuning example, gravitational constant. If altered by just one part in 10 to the power of 6, stars would fail to form. This is, I guess, what Stephen Hawking has said in A Brief History of Time. What a title, A Brief History of Time. Statistical miracle of Earth, habitable zone. It's called the Goldilocks zone. Earth sits precisely at 1 149.6 million kilometers from the sun. I mean, check that out. That means if closer to the sun, we'd be like, is everybody drinking hot tea? You know, it's like, would cold water be a myth? You know, so what I'm saying, so I'm saying, anyways, guys, this is something new. You know, I'm learning it on the spot. You should too. So there's the Goldilocks zone. It's so Earth is precisely 149.6 149.6 million kilometers from the sun, and it's perfect for liquid water. Then you have the rare Earth hypothesis. Ward and Brownlee in the 2000s, um, you know, their work in the 2000s, it argues complex multicellular life, animals, humans, is extraordinarily rare. Then you have the moon's role. Oh my God, stabilizes Earth's axial tilt at approximately 23.5 degrees, crucial for climate stability. That means the moon is stabilizing the axis, the tilt of the Earth, and it's important for climate stability. Guys, it seems like uh, um, the word random means but it appears calculated. The emergence of conscious rarity, evolution. So, guys, let me see if I learned this. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Goldilocks zone, 149.6 million kilometers from the sun. Rare Earth hypothesis, that was obvious. Moon's role, it stabilizes the Earth's axis at 23.5 degrees. Crucial for climate stability. Then we have the emergence of rarity. Evolutionary leap. Human brain size tripled over 3 million years from Australopithecus. Australopithecus. I don't know. Human brain size tripled over 3 million years from Australopithecus to Homo sapiens. Current human brain average, I guess it's estimated around 1,350 centimeter cube. Cognitive uniqueness, complex language, over 7,000 languages historically documented. Abstraction, symbolic thought, earliest art approximately 73,000 years ago. Blombo's Cave, South Africa. Yeah, I saw a documentary on this. Guys, what it was is the first artwork in human history is some dude putting his hand on a cave wall and splashing like red pigment powder on it. And that dude was like the Michelangelo before we even know who Michelangelo was. You know, he was a genius. Artists are genius because genius has to do with finding new connections to old relationships, sometimes bringing forth something new, may not to you but to others, may connect things. You know, the whole point of me, for example, sharing all my uh, inner realms with humanity is to in some sense be like, all right guys, this is how far I took it, how far can you take it? That's the real game. We're in some sense constructing the pillars of civilization. Anyways, to continue, Then we go to existential awareness. Humans uniquely aware of mortality and future planning beyond immediate survival. Development of religion, philosophy, and extraterrestrial literature as reflections of this awareness. Earliest known spiritual rituals, approximately 100,000 years ago, intentional burials. So that was that's. I mean, you can celebrate birth, I guess, but the intentional burial as the first spiritual ritual, that makes sense. Because everything that's in life is valued with life, but the moment the person leaves, it's as if they have gone somewhere. Okay, so you honor their passing. You honor their presence, and you keep them alive in your memories if you can, if it's meant to be. Anyways, so the earliest known spiritual ritual, it's intentional burial. Okay, that means somebody died and a bunch of people buried that person and they acknowledge that person's value. And then you have oldest surviving philosophical texts, the Vedas. Guys, I spoke about this for years back in the day, even though I'm Muslim now. But the Vedas, if the Vedas did not just try to stop you at the station of non-duality, I, I, it's, see, I have this firm belief that if I have a reference for beauty, I can see that fractalize in anything. For example, if you, how do I say it? People identify with how they're valuing themselves, then they try to find more advanced versions of those values. They're drawn to that. So, anyways, we have the Vedas, 1500 to 500 BCE, before Common Era, Greek philosophy, 600 BCE onwards. And then it says a species, like we're trying. So, this, everything I'm reading right now for you viewers, is just about how rare it is that everything's here. Okay. And so far, we've talked about, just to recap, we've talked about one, how rare is it, a universe of infinite potential. Then we talked about, oh my God, how rare is it, the emergence of consciousness. And did I read that part? Guys, I missed this part. Excuse me. No, no, no. I have. What am I? What am I reading? Yeah, I read that part. Drake equation, anthropic principle, statistical miracle of Earth. There we go. Yeah, the emergence of conscious rarity. No, no, I read this actually. Yeah, so we had the emergence of consciousness being rare, and then you have a species that questions its own existence being rare. Okay, so philosophical inquiry, history of metaphysics, epistemology, which is the study of knowing, ethics, and aesthetics. Ethics has to do with value systems. I guess it can be seen as axiology, where the axis of meaning is placed as a branch of it, I guess. And aesthetics. So we have Socrates in 469 to 399 BCE saying the unexamined life is not worth living, yo. And then you have Immanuel Kant, 1724 to 1804, introduced concepts like synthetic a priori knowledge, ethics rooted in duty. Then you have Nietzsche in 1844 to 1900s, questioned morality, declared God is dead. But guys, that's not the full quote. The full quote is God is dead and man killed him. That's what Nietzsche said, which was he meant that man was attacking the higher ideal of his being to make himself the higher ideal. So anyways, it says Nietzsche questioned morality, declared God is dead, highlighting shifts in human understanding of existence. Then you have science and the search for meaning, astronomy, Copernican revolution, 1543, Hubble's discovery of expanding universe, 1929. Then you have quantum mechanics, challenges classical understanding of reality and observer effect, Schrodinger's cat, 1935. Schrodinger pretty much was like, yo, man, if I put a cat in a box, and if I take a pistol and I shoot that box, it's as if, like, is the cat dead or alive? Both probabilities exist before we know, or both probabilities can exist to the observer. Cognitive neuroscience identifies brain regions, example, prefrontal cortex, parietal lobes, crucial for self awareness and introspection. 4, we go to transforming a rare world into a rarer one, advanced civilization and stewardship. Current human impact on Earth, species extinction, uh, excuse me, species extinction rate today estimated 1,000 times higher than natural background. IUCN Red List 2023. That's the reference. So, okay, so species are going extinct 1,000 times faster, I guess. Climate change, average global temperature rise of 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre industrial levels, IPCC 2022. That's the reference. Potential solutions and technological innovations, sustainable energy solutions, solar, wind, hydrogen, genetic engineering and CRISPR technology, it's an acronym, CRISPR, editing genomes to protect biodiversity, vertical farming and precision agriculture, 70 to 90% water reduction compared to traditional farming, existential stewardship and space expansion, space exploration statistics, NASA, SpaceX, ESA, Mars colonization proposals by SpaceX aim for a first crewed mission by 2030s. Moon Artemis missions, NASA aims sustainable presence by 2030. So, guys, by 2030, we're going to be like, yo, man, I'm living on Mars, bro. You know what I mean? Or, yo, man, let's go to the moon for some time for the weekend. Terraforming feasibility. Mars terraforming would require raising surface temperature by 60, by let's say estimated 60 degrees Celsius, altering atmosphere from predominantly CO2 to O2 rich environment. NASA Mars fact sheet. So this was something where, yeah, Elon Musk was like, kind of like, let's nuke the poles and kind of change, make the planet habitable. But I kind of feel that you might look at a ground and think it's empty, but there's creatures living in it. And just because we can't notice life, we cannot energetically influence it in other dimensions. And nuclear explosion is not just something that's influencing, I guess, a visible dimension of reality. Anyways, that means I don't know what, like, isn't there going to be nuclear? Isn't there going to be like nuclear? Isn't there going to be like nuclear radiation in the atmosphere if they do? I don't know. Yo, like the movie Eisenhower, not Eisenhower, the movie Oppenheimer. In the movie Oppenheimer, the dude like goes to Einstein and he's like, "Yo, man, is the whole world gonna explode if we create a nuclear bomb? Is the sky gonna ignite?" So, anyways, here it says concluding reflections, deeper philosophical implications. Humanity as observer and creator. We actively shape Earth's trajectory, making decisions influencing millions of future years. Ethical responsibility to protect rarity extends beyond current generations, possibly influencing evolution itself. And then we have advanced technological ethics, digital consciousness upload debates, Neuralink's brain computer interface, ethics of digital immortality. So it says, AI into the next thing it says about advanced technological ethics, AI integration in society. Current predictions estimate super intelligent AI by mid 21st century. AI experts survey, Oxford Future of Humanity Institute. Dude, there's a Future of Humanity Institute in Oxford. What the F? What the F? This whole time, the University of Oxford has not been listening to my lectures. It breaks my heart. It's breaking my heart. Who is that? Who is that character from Rick and Morty in that scene where it's all like the parasite memories, and there's like that uncle guy. He's like, "I'm walking here," you know. It's like somebody tell Oxford, University, Mr. Within's walking here, walking over here. All right. Future depth and conceptual frontiers. For the most advanced philosophical perspective, post-human evolution. Consider humans transitioning beyond biological limitations, potentially uploading consciousness to digital mediums. Guys, I recommend everyone. Okay, I don't care if you're a 90-year-old person or you're a young kid. Go on Netflix and watch the TV show Pantheon and watch all seasons of it. Okay, I think it's one of the most important shows on planet Earth right now. So then we have panpsychism and fundamental consciousness, philosophical stance suggesting consciousness is fundamental and pervasive throughout the universe, advocated by philosophers like David Chalmers, Philip Goff. I mean, that's pretty much what the Vedas say. Simulated reality. I mean, it's not that original, folks. Simulated reality, proposed notably by Nick Bostrom, 2003, suggesting a probability that our reality may itself be a sophisticated simulation, reframing existential understanding entirely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, think of it this way: the human intelligence has reached the creative point of trying to see how the past got the present here. Now the only thing that's it's going to be left is pretty much like, how is the present influencing the present, how's the past influencing the present, has influenced the present, and how is the future influencing the present. You see, guys, there's something very bizarre. I have an argument, and I'm a theological argument for why our future self is already here. Okay, theologically speaking, if so, first of all, keep in mind you're listening to a Muslim futurist. To be Muslim means that you consider a system admin that nothing in the simulated world can equal to. Okay, so it's like we're inside an existential system. We're users in this system, and I'm saying the system admin of this system is beyond anything in the system because it's aware of all the systems. Do you understand? So it's not based on a system, right? So we're a systemic intelligence here. The system admin could be beyond the system's intelligence, and it is. As a Muslim, you acknowledge it as that. As a Muslim, it's as if like your people back in the day were like, yo man, is this object truth, the ultimate truth, the most advanced truth? Is this object God? Do you know? And then they were like, no, it's not. And then they were like, yo, is this subject God? And then they're like, no, it's not. Do you know? So when it went from object worship to subject worship, eventually reaching a point where right now it's human worship. You don't understand. When I see like young kids putting posters of like athletes or celebrities, I'm like, what the F? You don't understand. It's like you got to be careful in this life to live your own life. And what that means is that Sure, you can get inspired by others, like that Transformer from the Transformer movie, where the kid's like, "Yo, man, this car looks like trash," and the Transformer, updated itself to the car that sponsored the show, the film. So I'm saying similarly, yes, it is kind of like you're not just a fixed entity. You're intelligent. You are an organism that's an open system. You're not a closed system. You're not a freaking statue. You're not a freaking photograph. And if you treat reality like a statue and a photograph, you're gonna wonder why you're stressed out. Do you know? Sometimes if the concept doesn't make sense, you got to look at the context of it. If the context doesn't make sense, you got to look at the concept again. If you eventually see both the concept and context doesn't make sense, which is not possible usually, then in some sense it would be as if like the design is wrong. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna keep reading because it honestly there's only one thing left to read for this research thing, AI thing I'm reading. Final thought. It's a passage here. It says, so AI says, we have the cosmic privilege and profound burden to determine whether we preserve our rarity as a cosmic gem or risk losing it forever. Understanding this is not merely scientific or philosophical, it's a foundational ethical imperative that will guide the future of our species. All right, guys, now I'm going to dive into this myself deeper into what we've just become aware of. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I ask you, what do you have to lose in this life? What can you lose? Or how can you lose? What comes to your mind? And how many different concepts come to your mind and how many different contexts? Okay? And for me, it's the context is very important because I want you to just imagine the scenario. There's good and evil people fighting in a room, and they're spending all their energy fighting with each other or just engaging in the room. And guess what? Okay, this house is going to be demolished. And so it doesn't matter whether you felt powerful in that room. It doesn't matter if you felt egotistical, if you felt like, you were in control or others were controlling you. It doesn't matter if you were a peasant or a king or if you were a master or a slave, because if the room is destroyed, all the possibilities of the reality are gone. So I'm trying to get the species to be like, all right, buddy, I get it. You have problems. You need to find your own solutions. You have your own dislikes and likes. You have your own value system, your own things going on. But what would it all matter if a bigger problem comes and devours this smaller problem we're trying to find a solution for? So I am saying that where we are led to, I find personally, is that our consciousness is an act of mercy for the system admin. That means if you look at history, those entities that were more conscious of how the reality was actually happening could adjust to it more clearly and survive. I want you to imagine right now you're the most like smartest person on the planet. You're the most all like knowledgeable person on the planet. And then I want you to imagine now you've come to something that nobody knows. You see, the cool thing is, just like there's people around us, and we can imagine better people to be around us, okay, or greater people to be around us. Similarly, I find that it's like when we see a problem in our life, we cannot ignore the fact that there are more advanced problems. And I think the task of human consciousness is to, in some sense, identify the big problem. I'll give you an example. Back in the day, okay, there were kingdoms, okay, giant castles. And there was the palace which had its own walls inside the kingdom. Okay, and then there was like the edge of the kingdom, which had walls of its own. And so it was a hierarchical system. Now I want you to imagine that this kingdom. So imagine you're a baker. Okay, you're a baker, you know, working in some medieval village back in the day. And so, you've never held a sword, but you've used, like, I don't know, like a solidified baguette, kind of like a weapon, or you've swung it around. So what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that imagine you're a baker and you're in a castle, okay, in a kingdom. I want you to imagine that a giant army is invading your kingdom. Now, everybody inside the kingdom can't see what's coming from behind the walls, from beyond the walls. Okay. Now, somebody comes and rings the war bells. Okay. And suddenly, it doesn't matter if you were solving the problem of giving bread to people or creating high quality bread. A problem emerges that calls upon a new archetype of self to resolve it. And the inability to change is the inability to notice the greater problems that, if you would solve all the smaller problems. It's the notion of the head of the snake. So the baker has to be like, holy shit, all right, my family and children are inside these kingdom walls. If the enemy gets through the walls, it's done, right? So it's like, in order for me to avoid the problem of my wife and children being invaded by an army, I have to, in some sense, put aside the fact that I'm a baker and pick up a weapon, and in some sense, find of courage flowing through me. That means if I lose something bigger. Do you understand? There's something about the psychology of sacrifice I've wondered. Do you know that it's as if the person who sacrifices himself is not technically dying, because he's keeping a value he identified with alive. Because if you truly ask, what is the human being, and you keep asking, it's like, if you take a deductive approach, you deconstruct it, it's like, all right, the human body is a bunch of cells. The cells are a bunch of atoms. Now, even though the atoms are 99.9% empty, but still, it's like the atoms are quarks. And then, yo, man, that quarks are like vibrating strings. It's not even particle based theory. Do you know what I mean? And for example, string theory, I'm just giving as an example, right? So I'm saying that's some approach. Now, if you did that for the mind, think about it. You're like, yo, man, it's a character in a story. But what is a character in a story? Okay, a character in a story is a relationship of, in some sense, a self in a world. You're like, okay, now what is the relationship of this self in a world? It is an identification with values. So in the same way, so what I'm trying to tell you, I gave a talk on this years ago. I called it the eventum, the smallest unit of the mind, an event. And I letter linked the T in atom, with the T in event. And I was like, how has nobody thought of this? And I just coined it. Okay. So the smallest units of the mind are an event. An event is a sort of value shift, transformation of value. It's like you have a value, something is happening, it's changing your perception, therefore changing your values to some degree, changing your awareness to value. All right, guys, I need a quick breather. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, back to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, human beings of Earth, members of a mighty species in the presence of an unknown event. The whole point of this lecture is to make you wonder about your true value system and to make you, in some sense, wonder about how rare it is for us to be able to be here and do the things we can. Pretty much every person has three sectors to their mind to kind of care for. It's pretty much looking at time. So, you as a being have a relationship with your past, you have a relationship with everything that's present, and you also have a relationship with the future, but they don't train you in that. That means if there was a topic called future studies, do you know they don't train you in future studies, okay? So anyways, folks, I'm gonna dive a bit deeper here, okay? So my consideration is simply this, that if something is rare, it has very high value. And for me, it's kind of like, okay, I'm a conscious being. I have logged into the day in the morning and I look at my world, my life, and I ask myself a question that is as simple as, what do I care for? Like, do I care for this train passing by? And the species tends to care for that which has utility, if you notice. In regards to the ego, all right, guys. I feel like I need some intense violin in the background. Sorry, guys. I felt like whistling for a moment. All right. So, what is the situation? You know, it's the emergence of 8 billion intelligent conscious systems. When you look at 8 billion human beings, what are you looking at? You're looking at 8 billion physical bodies in a physical world, but you're simultaneously looking at 8 billion inner lives. And so every person you have seen in your life has hidden the fact that what they are truly aware of cannot all be communicated. So I guess I'm saying it's rare that we're physically here. It's rare that we have the internal complexity and sophistication of being aware that we're aware of reality. Guys, can you imagine I'm like holding my laptop and running on the train tracks as the train's like chasing behind me now? And people are like, why don't you step aside? And I'm like, I just believe I need to go forward. I don't know. For me, it is, if I don't care for something, I can't activate my full intelligence for. And I asked you a question at the beginning, what do you have to lose? This doesn't mean you have nothing to lose. No, no, you have 100% things you can lose in this life. But I'm asking you, what is there to lose? So I'll give you an example. If I die, I have lost the meaning of myself. You can say, I have lost myself. Do you know? Or I'll say it this way: if I fail, it's like something that only had value for me ended. But if my species fails, it doesn't matter how many people succeeded. It doesn't matter how many people were smart. Do you know, if it's a stupid outcome at the end? You know, but it's not a stupid outcome because we're conscious. You see, they one thing I remember hearing, somebody said, "What's the difference between a smart and stupid person?" And the person said a smart person learns from their mistake in the first time. Being smart doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. Being smart doesn't mean you're perfect. Being smart doesn't actually mean anything. It's all about the awareness of a being to where it is. And you have to kind of understand that when you look at physical reality, your brain is generating models over it, overlaying it. And what that means is that, life physically, yes, physically I can see that object, but if I look at that object a bit longer, it's not just going to be a physical object, it's going to be imprinted with the inner psychological meaning which we input into it, which we link the object. So that object is just an object, it's just atoms, it's just color pigments, but it's just a three-dimensional object, but suddenly it has become a tree. Suddenly it has a symbolic meaning, a significance. Suddenly it enters the human consciousness. And in the same way that you, as a human being, have memorized an alphabet to speak, and just like how I was reading earlier in the AI that it was saying that there's 7,000 languages recorded so far. Do you know what I mean? So in some sense, human beings, like you learn an alphabet, well, guess what? As a human being, I firmly believe, and even though it may not be clear now for our species, that there will be an alphabet of values, advanced values. In the same, think of it this way: I am looking at human life, and I'm saying, okay, let's say there's two aspects to it. It's like just like we have two eyes that see the same moment. I'm saying, all right, let's, and not to not make everyone angry. You know, we're gonna say, all right, the human being is just body and mind, just for the sake of simple, like, people are fighting over whether they have souls or not, but I'm saying but I'm trying to say that we look at, just like we have two eyes that see the same, we are like two dimensions that are being one moment. Okay, and in front of your eyes, you have access to a realm of tangible physical objects. Behind your eyes, you have access to the meaning, to the scenery, to the image. That means, I'll give you an example. I can go, like right now, my hand is touching this car, okay, touching like the side of my car. Now, when I touch this car, I feel the sensations. My hands, it's like the moment I physically touch something else physical in this world, there is new signals activated. It's like the body thinks as well. Okay, so it's like, but if I was to close my eyes and imagine like banging on a wall, I wouldn't feel pain. I can imagine myself not to feel pain, which means that the mind is an inner life not limited to physical laws. So I'm pretty much saying you have access as, now it gets way more complex because as I was saying in the chat section, the mind is not the causal position. In the same way, atheists treat this world as the final destination, and religious people don't treat this as the final destination. In the same way, there are human beings treating the mind as in some sense the finale of their intelligence. Okay, as the final room of their intelligence. But what I will suggest to you is that, guess what? Even the language proves, the language we use to talk about the mind proves that we're not a mind, because you say my body, my mind. Who's, excuse me, the moment somebody says my mind, it can't make sense, that sentence, because the mind, if you identify as a thought, the mind is forging you. You can't say my mind, you are the mind if you believe that the mind is it. You understand? But why do we say my mind, my body? Who's this my? It's simply because you have been conditioned, they're conditioning you to think that you're just an object, but your starting point was awareness. Your starting point was awareness. That means, I don't know how I have this memory. I have one of my earliest memories is before I learned language. And before I learned language, there was instead of self identity, or an ego coming to revalue everything in the moment, a self-selected ego, it was, in some sense, I was sight in a room. I was the space. So I firmly, I don't know how to tell it to you, but it's like, you, what you actually are is the awareness to how objects and subjects change. And because you have memory, you compare the objects of subjects of an earlier time that you identified with to the object and subject of a future time. And in some sense, from the beginning of your life, everything has been changing except the awareness to change. Let me explain that a bit closer, deeper. What do I mean the awareness of change hasn't changed? I mean, every moment in my life, every conscious moment of my life, like, I don't have the same body as I had 10 years ago. I don't have the same ideas or perceptions on life as I had 10 years ago. But what I still have from 10 years ago is the awareness to form, whether it's internal or external. So what you actually are is, they first of all, as a Muslim, the soul is the secret of God, and it is also the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means it's the command of the system admin. It's unknown and unknowable for a reason, specifically. But if somebody was like, yo man, like, explain it somehow, I'd be like, the soul can be seen as the seat of awareness. It's not that the soul is your life is happening in the presence of your soul. And so, in illuminationist theory, at least, they have a very interesting geometry. And I think it's inspired from Surah Al-Nur in the Holy Quran, one of the most profound. I treat the Holy Quran as source code to the main operating system of reality, which means that we're all simulated beings. And what's the task of a simulated being? To remember the original. But how can it remember the original if it wasn't original? That's the clue of the soul. The fact that there is a force within you. I mean, the easiest explanation is like, yo man, the body is a life form, the mind is a life force, the soul is life itself, but it is also a life that cannot completely know itself. It's specifically there. Okay, so pretty much, as a human being, you're going to look at this world, and then, based on the title, a rare species in a rare world, you're pretty much going to just get the sense like, yo man, where did all this design come from? Like, I can understand when we give shape meaning, the design is coming from our inner realms, even though that can be argued that still we don't know where it comes from. But still, let's just, not make free will devoid right away, and to, in some sense, say, It's like reality is imagination you didn't imagine. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, it's a condition you did not create, you entered. You've entered a world room, and we all will leave it at some point. And it matters what we do in this world room, and it matters how aware we are to the true values that were here while we were here. In other words, what is the value of your life if you're living for something so small that something big would come and wipe it out? You know what I mean? I look at the human species and I say, my species, what are you doing? And that makes me fascinated to wonder what it can do. It is all about shifting from nationalism to speciesism, and not the traditional definition of speciesism, which is unjust for it, but speciesism means that you separated yourself from other human beings by thinking that you were a human from a different nation, but then you realize you cannot separate yourself from your species, in the same sense that if there were a bunch of soldiers on a battlefield suddenly appeared out of nowhere and they were all dressed up in battle gear, you can't be like, yo man, they can't identify as an army. That's the foolishness of the soldiers, because, and it's not just the foolishness of the soldiers, it's that there wasn't a greater value to come and be a commanding officer for them. And sometimes when you have no commander, you need to become your own, which means that pretty much I think the difference between leadership, like true leadership, is that you care for the whole scene. Like there are directors that they're like, all right, man, that was good enough. Next scene. And then there are directors who are like, no, I know this actor has greater potential. It's like, keep filming, right? In the same way, I want you to imagine that you're not just in a simulated physical reality, you are in a simulated subjective value system. And the sooner you realize you are in your own box, and the only way that spirituality doesn't free you from the simulation. People think being spiritual means freedom. Modern spirituality is like another disguise for the ego that has realized the person is getting close to its removal. And it's not that the ego can go away. It's just that you understand a greater intelligent way the reality is happening. In other words, if before you were like, okay, man, I'm this idea of me, and I'm going to go in this situation, and based on this idea of me, based on these values, I'm going to compare all the other values. Ladies and gentlemen, when the word my species becomes a source of honor for you, when the word advanced civilization becomes a source of greatness for you, when you look at your species and you wonder about their blind spots, and you wonder about if they can only see their spots, what advancement would come. In some sense, do you know what it is? I have this strange attitude. People can attribute it to my ego, and I might even be scolded beyond, metaphysically. But for me, I have this analysis. I have a sort of theological line of code that I go by, and the theological line of code is that the original power of this world, the system admin, the greatness beyond form, created the greatest form and is now testing the greatest form. I see this world as a simulated testing zone by the mere fact that it is so rare. You know what it's like? It's that whole idea that if somebody suddenly finds a watch out of nowhere, like on in the sand, you're walking by a beach, and you find a watch in the sand, and you pick up that watch, you cannot be like, yo man, this watch appeared out of nowhere. It had a designer. It seems existence is the effect of subtler design. Now the question is, what sort of intelligence is designing or administering the human experience? And if you have an answer for it, you're still in the simulation. If you don't, if the answer cannot be a form, you're closer. For me, the rare gives me joy. But I also cannot live alone on joy. My life force is inspired by the greater potentials of what can be. I pretty much realized that I am here to leave this world at some point, and it's kind of weird, but in 2025 life just felt like you did your best and then waited to see what happened. It's honestly like a chess game. You do some things and then you watch what happens in the world. The world makes a move, you make a move, the world makes a move, you make a move, the world makes a move, and at some point you wonder why you're playing this game, at all. And you wonder about the mechanics of the game. The way I have simplified it is, I'm saying if Earth was a video game, it's like four levels you need to advance in. Level one is the self. So pretty much you as a human. I'm telling you my approach, folks. My approach is that I see four levels to this Earth game, and this is how I'm playing it. I'm saying that, okay, before I die, I want to see what the most advanced expression and version of myself is, and if I can get close to that, it's a great victory on its own. If I can truly see it, that would be incredible. Okay, so a part of me as a human being here for a little while wants to see how advanced of a human being I can be before the curtains are pulled and the performance stops. So I'm wondering about the most advanced performance of self, the most advanced responsibility of self. Okay, the responsibility to be a self. So now let's just say I somehow finished level one. Okay, and I had solved all the problems of myself, and I had in some sense become the most advanced individual in my own world. Okay, now once you finish level one, you realize you cannot know your most advanced self if you're not in the most advanced civilization, or if you're not in the most advanced species. Okay, so level one is like you cultivate experience, you advance the self, and then you realize the most advanced version of ourself is not living alone to itself. Okay, so I'm saying first you're identifying as a self, and then you, at some point, I think the most advanced state of the self actually is realizing how limited the self is. That leads to you real like being able to see how advanced you can be. If you don't acknowledge your limitations and you act limitless, it's like, anybody can put on a mask, anybody can wear a Superman cape, but are they Superman? So anyways, you need to advance level one of the Earth game, advance yourself. Level two is the species, advance the species. So after, let's say you right now are such an incredible person that you have solved all the problems for yourself, and now, as I was saying, you're what's expected, level two, is solving the problems of your species. And once the most advanced civilization is there, so this is the idea. You can't know your most advanced self unless there's the most advanced, like, civilization. There's an advanced civilization. So you can't know the most advanced concept of self without there being the most advanced context of civilization. You can't know what the most advanced civilization is without being in the most advanced world. And you have to understand you're living in an era of history. Sorry if I'm showing a time traveler's ego, but you're living in an era in history where they are limiting you in the same way the primitive people in the world who sharpened spears and put color on their face. You've put the color on the context, on the face of the context of your meaning. In other words, for me, primitive people putting paint on their face and a human being saluting the flag is very similar. Okay, but the point of it is that we are a species before we identified with the land. So I'm trying to say that we need to the central value to modern human beings in 2025 is the species. You need to shift from being whatever story you're telling yourself and identifying with whatever piece of land to understand that you're a member of the human species and the earth belongs to the greatness of the human legacy. Pretty much level 1 is yourself, level 2 is the species, level 3 is the world, level 4 is the system admin. As a human being, you're starting off with level 1, the self. Okay, then at some point you emotionally reach an emotional maturity and you're like, oh my god, I'm getting bored of just my own feelings, my own problems, my own self. You know, it's like how many days, like for me it's like it's been, I'm 34, I guess, but level 1, let's say you completed that, you go to level 2, the species. You built an advanced civilization and you ushered forth the advanced humanity. Then level 3, you wondered about what's the most advanced so level 1 was what is the most advanced relationship of yourself with with yourself. What is the most advanced relationship of yourself with your species? What is the most advanced relationship of the species with the world? And finally, what is the most advanced relationship of the world with the system admin? And all, and to be honest, if you actually complete level 4 somehow through God's mercy, if you complete level 4, level 1, 2, and 3 become very easy. If you align directly to the system admin, not aligning to the simulated moderators. So I treat this world as an existential system. We're users. We're simulated users. There is also simulated mods. The mods have authority over the realm. An example of a simulated mod would be Shaitan or angels or whatever. Like all the polytheistic deities in Hinduism, they're all mods to me. You know, somebody connecting their spirit guide or channeling an alien, you're working with mods. Islam tells you to directly go to the system admin, and you cannot truly comprehend the system admin if you think you are the higher power. So the problem with sometimes believing in a higher self is that you think the higher self is you. But we can have also this view that if God created the simulation, God is maintaining the simulation and the simulation returns to the system admin. It kind of means that the future self of everybody is how everything returned to the system admin. The thing I wanted to tell you about illuminationist theory in Surah Al Nur, I don't think I actually got to it, but I'll just say it again just in case. Pretty much, God is the light of lights, the soul is the shadow of God, and the spirit is the shadow of soul. And for example, meaning is in the domain of spirit. So technically, from I guess a metaphysical, even though the soul, keep in mind, is a mystery, metaphysically speaking, it's like your soul's life is within God's life, and everything that you see has a spirit is within your soul's life. Anyways, ultimately, it just shows how rare reality is. And the more rare it is, the more important it is, the more we have to comprehend its value. And it's too unique, guys. I don't know. Am I the only one who feels this? It's too designed. It's too designed. It's too well designed. That means we're like these designed creatures that didn't design themselves and are like, yo, man, we're giving meaning to it through our own designs. I'm telling you, the spirit of life is different from the soul of life, and the soul of life is different from the God of life, the system admin. The system admin is not limited to form. It's pretty much it's like everything in manifestation. The simulated world is, it's like everything inside the box is being attracted to a point outside of the box. A simulated being has nothing else to do aside from notice the original. That's level 4. Level 2 and 3 are stewardship protocols. Level 1 is a realization protocol. Anyways, thank you for listening, folks. I hope this lecture was interesting. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Auzu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Ghfirli, my Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive me for all the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. My Lord, forgive my species and your creation for all the sins they are conscious and unconscious of, for you are the all-forgiving. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the most advanced guide us in the most advanced way. I think that because there is something to lose, there is something to live for. Because there is something to live for, there is a an there is a truth attractor. It's a very advanced system. In no way, shape, or form I am assuming I understand it. I am just someone who's fascinated by all the stuff that I don't know. And you're going to be like, Mr. Within, do you have a big ego? I'll be like, yeah, I think my ego is the size of the whole cosmos, because it doesn't, it identifies with, it has a connection to the world. The world is edgeless. So in front of our eyes, we find ourselves as a known physical self in an edgeless physical world. Behind our eyes, we find ourselves as a known ideological self. And you tend to see known worlds. And it is, I find it is true that the soul is not limited to being a self in the world. It can also be the world and the self. It can also be a world. So I'm saying that in front of your eyes, you're specifically, again, a physical self in a public physical server. Behind your eyes, you're in a private inner server. Okay. And what your personality is, actually, for anybody, I struggled with this when I was young, but if you really want to know what your personality is, it is when you realize that it's okay to be you. When you realize that every human being on this planet is experiencing themselves in reality for the first time. And some people might be like, yeah, man, I believe in past lives. I'll be like, bro, you're not just a subject and object to have endless variations to. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Thank you for listening.